Imagine waking up one day and there's no phone to reach for, no alarms to stop, no notifications to check, and no quick scroll through Instagram or TikTok to kickstart your morning. Sounds strange, right? But what if that was your reality every single day? How different would life be without a cell phone? Let's dive into the massive impact cell phones have had on our daily lives and explore what happens when we imagine a world without them. Cell phones have revolutionized our existence, transforming from simple devices meant for calling into essential tools that shape how we communicate, work, and even think. But what if we step back in time to a world where cell phones didn't exist? How did people function? Could you survive in such a world? And on the flip side, what are the consequences of being so reliant on these devices? Today, we're comparing life before and after the rise of the cell phone. And let me tell you, the differences will surprise you. Here's the dilemma. We're so accustomed to having our phones with us every second of the day that the idea of going without them feels almost impossible. But is this constant connectivity truly benefiting us, or is it causing more harm than good? Are we more productive, or are we just more distracted? Do cell phones help us stay close to people, or push us further apart? Let's compare the pros and cons of life without a cell phone versus life with one, and see which way of living might be healthier for our minds, our relationships, and our overall well-being. Life without a cell phone, a slower, simpler world. In the days before cell phones, life unfolded at a much slower pace. There was no instant communication or information at your fingertips. If you wanted to meet up with a friend, you had to make plans well in advance and stick to them. You couldn't just shoot off a quick text to say, "running late." If you missed someone at home, you'd leave a message on their answering machine, hoping they'd get back to you sooner rather than later. Punctuality mattered more because you couldn't easily change plans on the fly. Without a phone in your pocket, you had to rely on public payphones or landlines if you needed to make a call. Can you imagine waiting in line for a payphone today? That was a common sight back then. And while it might sound inconvenient now, there was a certain peace in knowing that you weren't reachable at all times. If you went out, you weren't tethered to notifications or emails. You were fully in the moment, experiencing the world around you. Navigating the world without technology. One of the biggest adjustments in a pre-cell phone world was navigation. If you needed to go somewhere new, you'd rely on a paper map or directions written down on a scrap of paper. You couldn't just pop open Google Maps and let a voice guide you. It required more focus, and there was a lot more room for error. Getting lost was a real possibility, and if you did, you'd have to rely on asking strangers for directions. In a way, this forced people to be more aware of their surroundings and interact with others more often. Transportation and travel. Traveling in the pre-smartphone era was another challenge entirely. Road trips involved stacks of maps and atlases, and if you missed a turn, you'd have to figure it out on your own. Nowadays, with GPS at our fingertips, we're guided step by step, making travel incredibly easy. But before cell phones, getting lost was just part of the adventure. In a way, it made traveling more thrilling, if a bit more stressful. Social connections without cell phones. Before cell phones, social interactions were deeper and more deliberate. If you wanted to stay connected with someone, you couldn't just send them a quick text or comment on their social media posts. You had to call, write letters, or meet up in person. Conversations were longer and more meaningful because they had to be. You couldn't rely on instant messaging to get your point across in a few words. Without the distraction of constantly buzzing phones, people engaged more deeply with one another in social settings. When you were out with friends, you weren't constantly checking your notifications or scrolling through Instagram. You were fully present, focused on the people and the conversation in front of you. And believe it or not, this led to stronger relationships. When you weren't constantly bombarded by digital distractions, you had more mental energy to invest in the people around you. The art of waiting. One of the more subtle differences between life with and without cell phones is how we handle waiting. Today, if you're standing in line or sitting in a waiting room, the first thing most of us do is pull out our phones. We scroll through social media, check emails, or play games to pass the time. But before cell phones, people simply waited. You might strike up a conversation with a stranger, read a book, or just let your mind wander. While it sounds boring by today's standards, These moments of stillness were opportunities for reflection and creativity. They gave your brain a break, something that's increasingly rare in today's nonstop digital world. Life with a cell phone. The age of instant everything fast forward to today, and our cell phones have become an extension of ourselves. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed, our phones are constantly within reach. We use them for everything: texting, calling, navigating, shopping, working, and of course, entertainment. It's hard to imagine going even a day without one. Cell phones provide us with instant access to information, and that's one of their greatest strengths. With a quick search, you can learn anything, anywhere, at any time. Whether you need to know the weather forecast, find the nearest restaurant, or double-check the spelling of a word, your phone has the answer. This has made life more convenient in countless ways. But with this convenience comes dependency. The double-edged sword of connectivity. While cell phones keep us connected, they also keep us tethered to a never-ending stream of notifications. We're constantly receiving emails, texts, and social media updates, and this can be overwhelming. The pressure to respond quickly and stay on top of things can lead to stress and anxiety. We're always on, which means we rarely get a chance to truly disconnect and relax. In the pre-cell phone days, once you left work or school, you were done for the day. There was no way for your boss or teacher to reach you until the next day. Today, we're reachable 24/7, and this can blur the boundaries between work and personal life. How smartphones change productivity. Cell phones have undoubtedly made us more productive. We can send emails on the go, set reminders, and organize our entire lives from one device. But at the same time, they can also be our biggest source of distraction. The temptation to check social media or play a quick game during a work break can quickly spiral into hours of wasted time. Before cell phones, distractions were fewer and farther between. If you were working on a project or reading a book, you weren't constantly pulled away by notifications. You could focus for longer stretches of time, and this led to deeper, more productive work. In contrast, today's constant distractions can make it harder to concentrate, and many people struggle with maintaining focus. Socializing in the smartphone age. Social interactions have also changed dramatically since the rise of smartphones. While cell phones make it easier to stay in touch with people across the globe, they've also made face-to-face interactions less common. It's not unusual to see groups of friends hanging out, but each person is glued to their phone, barely engaging with each other. We've traded meaningful, in-person connections for superficial digital ones. This constant connection can lead to a fear of missing out, FOMO, as we're always aware of what others are doing through social media. Instead of enjoying the moment, we're often too focused on capturing it for Instagram or Snapchat. In contrast, life without a cell phone encouraged people to be fully present, without the pressure of sharing every moment with the world. So, which is better, life with or without a cell phone? It's not an easy question to answer. On the one hand, cell phones have made life incredibly convenient. We're more connected, more informed, and more productive than ever before. But at the same time, they've introduced a level of distraction and stress that didn't exist in the pre-cell phone era. It's a trade-off between convenience and presence, and finding the right balance is key. Ultimately, the question isn't about whether we should live with or without cell phones. It's about how we manage our relationship with them. We don't need to abandon technology altogether, but we can set boundaries to ensure it doesn't take over our lives. Try putting your phone away during meals or turning off notifications for a few hours each day. By doing this, you can enjoy the best of both worlds: modern convenience and meaningful, distraction-free moments. If you found this interesting, don't forget to subscribe for more.